welcome to Top Deck Heroes.
It's good to be back with the original host, Sean O'Brien,
That's me.
and I'm
So,
Kevin Broberg.
I was out of town for 2 weeks. I heard my channel got hijacked. I watched it. I mean, they had some really, would seem like a really smart UFS player on. He had glasses, and he was kind of freckly and kind of
He's
skinny.
he's kind of a washed-up has-been.
And then there was an idiot.
What an idiot!
What an idiot! So, some stuff happened while I was away. I saw that our first promo for the season went up, thanks to Luchador, or Jesse Cervini over in Rochester. I think he dropped the gauntlet and basically told people, hey, this is what's happening this year. So I thought it was pretty good. Though he has called Kevin Broberg that Rochester is going to take at least the top 3 spots at the St. Louis 1K coming up.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's really tough to just to get the pairings to break your way to do that, unless you completely rock the Swiss and like only lose to each other and get all the top seeds consecutively like that.
Well, it's
But even then, you
okay.
still need good pairings.
It's okay. I actually have invited my friend Chaozu to the tournament, and he's going to
Okay.
use his magic to manipulate the pairings.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure you should use Chatsu for that, Shadow Bright. It is your tournament. You wouldn't want it to look like there's any kind of appearance of impropriety. On the
Very.
other hand, we could take our cues from the President of the United States and just kind of throw propriety completely out the window and just do whatever the hell we feel like.
I mean, the only reason why I didn't win the last tournaments I went to was the previous winner hacked my wiretapped me and knew what I was going to do, so that's why I lost. Getting away
That's
from
why I didn't win
politics,
by more. Yeah.
let's talk about the 1K. Now, there are 28 tickets left, and there are about 2.5 weeks till the event. And remember, this is a capped event. So the store is only allowing us to have 40 participants. And if you show up to this event, you get this super swanky playmat. It's up on the screen right now. It's got one of my favorite arts from the new set. Features Super Skullman 33 and a turtle.
I love the facial expressions on these two characters in this picture. It's just great.
Well, without the stop sign, because due to the shape of a playmat versus the shape of a card, it looks like Super Skullman's having a staring contest with this turtle, and the turtle seems surprised about it. So, everybody who shows up for the tournament and pre-registers, please remember you have to pre-register, gets this swanky playmat. So everybody who shows up gets this playmat and pre-registers. I'm also working on another exclusive event item that we should be able to announce here in the next few days. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. So remember, 28 tickets left. Get your tickets before they're gone, because once they're gone, you can't get in.
Yep.
So, next thing I wanted to talk about, Kevin Broberg, is while there was stuff happening in the UFS world while I was away, I went to Gamma, which
Yeah,
is
tell us about where you have been for the last 2 weeks.
well, for the first week, I decided to take my wife on vacation because we never go on vacation. Usually, our vacations are traveling to UFS events. So we decided to do a vacation where we went and saw the Rocky Mountains and the Great Basin out in Utah. We did some hiking. We drove up Pikes Peak. It was a lot of fun. We had a great time. And then after our
All
trip, we
right.
went to the Gamma Trade Show. So that trade show is for game store owners, publishers, and distributors, where we get to find out what the hot things are for the coming year. Which, unfortunately for all you, I cannot disclose it. But I have to say, I went to the Jasco Games panel, and they have a lot of good stuff coming. We got to see the box art for Cowboy Bebop, which we put up on the Rochester CCG Facebook page, which does indicate a few things to us. Indicates that it looks like a full booster box set, so it's a traditional booster display. We also saw a... What else did we see? There's a couple board games coming out later this year. I don't know if I can disclose those yet. But there's a lot of good stuff coming. And there's UFS cards. And I think that they rumored what the rest of the releases are going to be for this year. We know we got Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat.
Street Fighter, then Cowboy Bebop, then Mortal Kombat coming up in order. And then I heard there was something else there. Can you confirm that the next set after Mortal Kombat is slated to be Darkstalkers versus Street Fighter?
Now, there wasn't anything announced at the panel about that that I'm aware of. However, I mean, a lot of times I find in this industry, rumors tend to be true. Except rumors about them rotating caught red-handed early, because that's just dumb. So, but there was a lot of good things, good things I learned at the trade show. I learned some techniques on how to improve streaming of tournament games, which I do plan to use going forward as the funds become available, because it does require some specialized equipment, and naturally these things are not cheap. But they showed us how to do an easy but effective setup where you can have a camera for the cards and then a camera for each of the players, so you could see their expressions as they draw off their hand, or in Kevin Broberg's case, you can catch them picking their nose.
Oh yes. Oh, you guys aren't ready for the new meta, boys.
So that was pretty.
I mean,
exciting.
I have facial expressions too, but I also pick my nose sometimes.
But yeah, it was a great event, and we had a lot of fun. I learned a lot about running a store and how to run my store better. So I think there's going to be some improvements coming. We learned about how to improve the streaming, and like I said, lots of good stuff coming. So stay tuned for that. But let's move on to our top story tonight, and that is preview season. There have been, since I've been gone,
you've missed several events, several new spoilers, and we've got more coming the rest of this week.
So I'm not going to go back and talk about the previews that were discussed while I was away, but I do want to discuss some new cards. The first card I saw, I don't think we've covered, is Juri. She's going to be one of the box toppers. My understanding is that there's going to be 2 box toppers this set, which presumably is the other mystery character, because we only know 19 of the 20 characters, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think there's still one question mark. Yep.
So Juri, for those of you listening on audio only, is a 7/20 with Air, Evil, and Void. It says, discard a card. Your kick attack gets +3 damages. An R once per game. After you play your 5th card this turn, you may discard up to 4 cards from your card pool, and your opponent discards 2 cards. This ability cannot be canceled. Now, Kevin Broberg, it has been a minute since we saw a once per game ability.
Yeah, before that it was a minute. It might have actually only have happened once in the history of the game, I think, on an old promotional. I want to say Lien from Street Fighter, maybe. Yeah, the once per game is really kind of tells you what's supposed to happen here. You're supposed to set up this ability that's jump through a little bit of a hoop, maybe take some setup to do it, but then you kill your opponent in that turn, and you're absolutely committed to that because you're not going to get another better opportunity.
But yeah, you are correct. The last card that had this was Lien. I brought her up on the screen here. She had a once per game ability that made any attack unblockable. And then while she was ready, after a player plays an attack, they have to discard a card. On a 7/23. What laughable statistics. Shit, this day and age, I'll take a 7/23 blank.
Well, you can get a 7/21 that has a sort of blankish ability with the old Natali. I think, anyway.
So, Yeah, it looks like they found in the chat a couple other examples, but it's been a hot minute since one of these abilities was its standard.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure how good her once per game ability is, because I don't, other than and everything I can think of to play it involves not playing kicks. Because I think for her once per game ability to be really good, she needs to draw a shitload of cards.
Yeah, you really want to be setting it up somehow. You don't want to just like it's pretty tough to say I'm going to draw 7 cards in my hand, and then, well, if you have 7 cards, you play 5 of them, and you want to take advantage of that cleared progressive difficulty. Now you need to be throwing cards away for your enhanced too. So that's now you're burning the candle at every conceivable end, like really 3 ends at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There is one big kick that works great with that though, which is Delta Kick. One of
Delta
my
Kick
favorite cards.
adds a face down to your hand, right?
No, it adds any foundation to your hand. It's the cost, in fact, to give it powerful too.
Well, that seems like it'd be pretty good. Yeah, I could see where Delta Kick would be good for that. The thing I was thinking of, I think the best thing that might be able to be done with Jury is to play her off of air
Hmm.
and just draw a million cards with like Tengu Dive.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think there's going to be it's not immediately obvious which direction you're pulled in the strongest with this character. I think there's a couple different ways you can go, and we'll have to see how things kind of bounce out. I mean, there might just be some really awesome evil or death kicks available to her as well. Or no, is it evil and void are her symbols? I
Air,
blanked.
Evil, and Void.
Yeah. Oh, so on void you get petrol powered too. But actually, even then, so it's interesting. Do you actually want to play cards that clear progressive difficulty? Because in an ideal world you could play 4 attacks and then play a 5th card, clear all your 4 attacks out of the card pool. Maybe play 5 attacks, even just straight up go crazy, have a hand completely full of attacks, play all these attacks, and then just keep playing more attacks and throwing cards away on all of them in complete magical Christmas land.
I mean, I guess what you could do is you could play a Void deck running the. Oh no, you can't run Scorch Wheel, the glass ceiling! Oh, I was just looking at Scorch Wheel and it's
Well,
gender male.
you can play Scorch Wheel. It's just a 7 damage move that doesn't count for aggressive. There's been some conversation in the community about, well, what's a fair card, and well, Scorch Wheel just does 7 damage if you draw it. So, um, it's just fine to rip your opponent's hand apart and then throw 7 damage moves at them. That's a solid way to win the game.
Yeah, you just don't get maximum value.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the thing I struggle with is finding kicks that are good enough that also put a bunch of cards in your hand.
Yep.
And that's my criticism of this character right now. But we've only seen, what, 10 cards in this set? So
Yeah. And honestly, you can get pretty far if you just say, I'm going to play a kick, and then you're going to be afraid of me discarding your hand. So you're just going to take it, even if I damage from my kick. You're going to be afraid, and then I'm just going to play that game. I'm going to play the kind of get in your head, figure out what you don't want to happen, and then just play to push your buttons, and maybe kind of have that threat of activation going. Because what's a really great kick to play when your opponent has no cards in their hand?
any
Probably
kick.
the greatest. Well, the very best kick that starts at 6 damage and gets bigger for every enhance you play. Turns out shares 2 symbols. So
That is a true story. That is a true story. So that's Jury. I think if it's a box topper and there's 2 box toppers, if you open 2 or 3 boxes, you should get your when X you'll need of this. But the next card I want to talk about, I think everybody's going to want lots of copies of, and that is E Honda.
the big man himself.
So I gotta say, Kevin Broberg, this is the first E Honda that's not laughably bad. All the old E Hondas were terrible. So while you think of a rebuttal to that, this E Honda
I like the Honda 4. I
is
don't
a
know.
5-hand size, 34 vitality, with all earth and water. R once per turn. After your opponent plays a card as a block, seal it or seal 1 non-character card in their staging area. And then E, if your opponent blocks your printed 5 difficulty attack, they remove the top 4 cards of their deck from the game.
So what do you think of this guy?
Um,
I mean, I have to say the first thought has to be, wow, they ripped off my champ card design.
is that a champ card you submitted, Kevin Verberg?
It's a champ card you submitted. That's Rochester CCG, is it not?
No, actually, it doesn't quite rip off Rochester CCG.
It's a lot more flexible, and it draws a card too.
It draws a card, but it doesn't make your attack safe.
This is true. Yeah, so my first thought with this, the first, like, once I finished parsing this, the thing that I've seen kicked around a lot in the conversations on this character is, we're playing in a format with cards like 8,000 Degrees and Immortal Knowledge and Athena's Knight and all this stuff running around. This is a 5-hand size character. Can he really punch hard enough just to put the fear of God in me to make me even care about blocking? Or am I just gonna, like, if I'm a 7-hand size, am I just gonna dump all 7 of my cards on the table and just say, do something about it, Honda? You're a 5-hand size.
Well, the king of 5-hand size, Matthew Clarkus Turner, said that this character was unexciting. And the thing is, with E Honda, I don't see a clear path to victory. With a character like Clark, my path to victory is I'm going to take you down to Suplex City, and my move's going to get +4, then +3, then +2, plus all my other Clark shenanigans. Plus, then Clark has an extremely good defensive ability. Other 5-card hand-size characters, Mie Lian from the last set, has an ability that is good both defensively and offensively to get more cards in her hand, and to make your opponent's attack smaller for revealing pairs. And I feel like compared to those cards, even compared to Vincent Gray, he gets around being a 5-hand size by being able to get free foundations. So I think E Honda is going to really struggle in the 5-hand size with no damage ability area. So unless he's some sort of really good backdoor mill character, which Jasco Games has been very hesitant to print after we had the mill team in Ruler of Time and their mill game wasn't really terribly good.
Yep. They might be taking a shot with this. I thought about comparing this character to Shen, right? Who says if free E, if your attack gets blocked, your opponent removes 2 from their discard pile. And this is a lot that the Honda's ability is a lot better than that. If you cross your eyes and say, like, 5 diffs aren't a restriction here, but so removing 4 from their deck makes them 4 cards closer to cycling, and they don't get those cards back ever. So if they block 4 times, like, and the game is dragged on long enough, it's like turn 5 or 6, they're going to be really close to cycling. And once they cycle, they're going to be very tight on cards in their deck at that point.
The question is, will Honda be able to play 4 attacks before he's dead? On a
4 attacks that your opponent feels the need to block, too.
Yeah. That are also 5 difficulty.
Printed 5 difficulty, too. So, if your immediate first thought with this character was, well, what's a good 5 difficulty attack? Oh, Flying Yamato Spear? Your opponent's allowed to block the multiple, and that response won't grok.
Yeah. So, unless we see good stuff in his support tomorrow, maybe on the 100 sumo slap technique that they have hinted that they're going to spoil, unfortunately, I think this guy's destined not to be played. And I love Honda. He's my favorite character in Street Fighter. But I think he's going to go the way of pretty much all the other Hondas of just being not good enough.
And I posted in chat. I do think I think I agree with your conclusion. I'm worried about the competitive future for this character, but I think 4.Honda is really good. You could never print him in standard.
No, but when he was printed, he was really bad.
So, like, the original Hondas, they printed them next to Dalsim and Tira and, Tycho. This Honda got printed next to Akuma, who is, like, similar caliber, like Sakura, similar caliber of character, but you could actually sit down and kind of have some self-respect about it. It's just that you're going to get out-controlled by Addy Syndicate and Blood Runs True,
Yeah,
and
and
be like,
this
well,
this
that's not fair.
Honda is printed with Zoe. This Honda is printed with Dave Wagner. This Honda is printed with Dimitri.
Yeah,
So, I mean, yeah, power level for this guy is a little more reasonable, and the power level in the format's a little more reasonable right now. But like every Honda that came out during their time, I think he's destined to sit in your binder.
I have high hopes because I think that you can definitely see when we're actually going to get some of the set cards, the non-character cards, they're definitely making support to fill in gaps these characters. The decks are going to be bigger than just the face card, so we'll have to see what his support looks like. So I can imagine he has enough tools to have at least one competitive build.
So let's
Anyway,
move on to
let's move on to
characters
Ken.
who I think are better. Let's talk about Ken, aka I am a hyper bomb. He is a 6 hand size, 27 vitality with all fire and good. Your turn, discard a card. Your attack gets stunned 2. Commit 1 foundation. After your attack is not blocked, draw a card.
Yep. So I think this is a really good character. So I don't know if this character is going to be extremely competitive, but I love kind of the way he just inserts kind of common UFS play patterns that come up, somewhat rarely, and just makes them happen every single game. So the one I have in mind especially is you're completely tapped out, you haven't blocked once, but you're just trying to find the right time to play your one little trick or to block and then have a revoke or something and just barely stay alive and then backswing your opponent. And I think that kind of play pattern is going to come up all the time with this kind of character.
Mm-hmm. He does have the little training wheels on it. Your turn for stun 2, so you can't do it as a reversal.
Yep. Yeah, I think you kind of got to have that. Like the stun 2 reversal is so much stronger than doing it on your own turn.
One card that I kind of want to try a deck with this guy, and I know we haven't seen a ton of his support yet. We've seen 3 cards, but I would like to try to see if I can build a Valiant Assault deck with him.
Oh yeah, baby.
Because
draw all the cards.
Draw 2 cards, pitch 1 to give my attack stun 2. It makes it so Valiant Assault might be much more likely to actually get in at 3 difficulty.
Yeah.
I think good might be a pretty good symbol with him. He gets some good punches from Vincent Gray. He doesn't even have to be punches.
He has a great Psychic Upper. Wow.
Yes, he does.
I love it. The 2 speed low is like the perfect place to put stun 2 because a lot of times you're just sneaking it in for free because they don't have a low block, and 5 damage and drawing a card is perfectly solid. That card's literally hyper bomb now, actually.
Yeah. General Reaction says that Ken shares a symbol with Caught Rod Handed, aka the Badger Club, but since that's a champ card and they don't print those so well anymore because they're really hard to get through, I'll believe it when I see it. So that's Ken.
So we do have some spoilers from Ken's support, and they really fill in the gaps a little bit with this character, I think.
The first one is Ken's Shoryuken. This is a 5 difficulty, 3 check attack with a +3 high block, 4 high for 5. It's a punch, and for Ken, it's a reversal. All ability, if it's not blocked, you draw a card. And Fire Enhance, this attack gets +2 damage.
So can I tell you what card this reminds me of?
What card does this remind
you of? Sagaki Offering.
That's a great card.
5 difficulty, pretty beefy stats, gets you up on cards. It's pretty solid. It's got this card actually has a pretty poor block modifier, which is a little bit surprising, but it's a perfectly solid attack. And I think really what this card strikes me as is that this card is a great tool to beat up 5 hand size characters. If you're trying to take down Goro or Clark,
Or E
You're gonna
Honda.
love having E Honda. Yeah, just this big 7 damage shot to the face, and you get to draw a card off it. So then it's really really solid poke.
Yeah. And if you combine it with Ken's other ability, you give it stun 2, and then if your opponent doesn't block your 4 high for 7 punch, you're going to draw 2 cards, which just gives you more fuel for the stun 2. And 5 hand size has a hard time dealing with stun. They
Yep.
pretty much have to rely on their booty. And your booty's not that big when it's 7 cards, 7 vitality at a time.
Yeah. And someone in chat points out this card's great in Talbane too.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
if they can't quite block that 6 speed high, all of a sudden you're up a million cards.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this card. It's going to be a common, so it's going to be in your draft pods quite frequently. Now, one thing I did here at Gamma, I don't know if Shane's really talked about this yet, but this set is going to be extremely good to draft because the Street Fighter set was designed to be its own standalone playable card game. So it's supposed to be
Okay.
fairly balanced against itself that if you want to play Street Fighter block, it's just Street Fighter as constructed, it's supposed to get along and play nicely, which I think is a good sign for draft.
Interesting. Yeah.
Moving on to Ken's Tatsumaki. This is a 4 difficulty 3 check attack with a +2 mid block. 3 mid for 4. It's a kick, has multiple 1, and combo attack. Combo E, this attack and its multiple copies get +2 damage. And Ken E, this attack gets +1 to its stun rating.
I forgot about that line of text. That is my favorite line of text they have spoiled so far.
Ken E?
Yeah, can't well +1 to the stun rating. This card doesn't have stun. What the hell is going on? I wish they had spoiled this card before they spoiled Ken.
That would have been pretty cool, because then people would be like, well, does Ken have an ability that lets you give something stun?
Do they just really want us to play Robot Masters? What's
Judge,
going on?
Judge.
Judge.
If I give this stun 1 with Robot Masters, and then I give it stun 2 with Ken, and then I use the Ken E, do I get stun 2 and stun 3?
Nope. So the way that works is when you have multiple keyword ratings on an attack, and something says the keyword rating like singular like that, then you basically just choose one of the ratings to get the bonus. So strategically, I'm being a bad judge. If you're at an event, I'll tell you. I'm not supposed to give you advice, but you want to try to balance your stun ratings out in case your opponent might cancel one of them.
Absolutely. I'd rather have stun 2 and stun 2 and have one of those
Yep.
revoked instead of having stun 3 and stun 1 and getting one revoked. One of those is clearly worse than the other.
Yep. And either way you cut it, they're gonna commit 4 foundations at the end of the day. It's addition, it's transitive, it's fine. But
I like its the combo E to make it a pair of 3 mid for 6s.
yeah, like if you've ever died to Flying Hamato Spear with no cards in your hand, you'll die to this if you have no cards in your hand the same way. Or if you're completely tapped out and there's some speed pumps going on, 3 speed mid when you're tapped out isn't that slow. Isn't that easy to block.
It isn't. I mean, if you're tapped out and you still have your dude ready, you could still block with Templar. You could still block with some. I mean, Templar's only a 4 difficulty block there.
It is. But if you're sitting on a bunch of +3s, it's going to be tough. And 4 difficulty for 12 damage is a very nice rate. So this is an exciting card, I think. This is a card,
Mm-hmm.
I bet we see a lot of it in block constructed. I'll put it that way.
Well, we won't see it too much in draft because this is at rarity.
Mm.
But if someone opens this in their first pack and hard drafts Ken, this will give them a really good kill, I think.
Yeah.
After Tatsumaki, our next spoiler is T-Hawk, a fan favorite.
Not for long.
All right, T-Hawk is a 5 hand size, 35 vitality, with Earth, Life, and Void. Arc of a Foundation. After your slam or throw is blocked, your opponent discards a card. Your opponent may flip 2 to cancel this effect. And then E commit, your next slam or throw attack ignores progressive difficulty. So comparing him to Mr. Honda, who we looked at earlier, I definitely feel like there is an more obvious pathway to victory here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got both cards up on the screen just for comparison. Because, I mean, T-Hawk, I feel like the obvious answer here is to uh, empty your opponent's hand somehow if they only saved one or two cards,
Yep.
or force them to flip their foundations.
Yeah, if you've ever played against Dimitri and he attacked you twice, like 2 times every turn, and you blocked just to keep your life total up, well, you're actually getting your stage guard flipped faster by T-Hawk. Unless you want to get your hand ripped apart.
Yeah, unless you want to discard all your cards. So unless you have like balanced fighters in your hand, you don't typically want to discard cards. And then he has an ability. His second ability is to let your slam or throw ignore progressive. So if you can find a way to play Gavrik's Ultra Rare, and just completely
tasty.
and use his Deadlock ability, you can actually legitimately empty out your opponent's hand. But I think T-Hawk's going to struggle just like Honda is that you only got 5 cards. So by the time your opponent has no cards in their hand, do you have any gas left to put them away?
Yep. Yeah, I think that both these characters, I didn't realize actually how similar these two characters are in that they both have abilities that punish your opponent for blocking, and so they're kind of in a weird. They're sort of. I think they're a little bit hard to evaluate in a vacuum because the big question is, well, how good are the defensive decks at kind of shutting down their offense, especially in ways that don't involve blocking, just completely make them blank characters. And like, how are they going to handle when they draw hands with no attacks? How tanky can they be against the good offensive decks?
Someone in the chat just mentioned that, in addition, he's got this commit a foundation cost, which on a 5 hand size is a real cost because you're not like Felicia who's got 24 foundations by turn 3, right? And so if you're playing a 5 hand size and you play, let's say, a 5 damage throw, let's say you play a Death Valley Faceplant, and you've got 5 foundations and you check a 3.
Yeah, there you go 2.
And then now, if your opponent blocks, can you really afford to commit another one to make them flip 2 or discard a card?
Yeah, and where this pain gets really apparent is when you're playing against opponents who are threatening your resources in other ways. So if you're playing against someone with Clark Sunglasses is a bad example. They're playing Hanya or they're playing Journey West, and now you're gonna have to pay extra for all your cards after that first attack. Or if they're just playing Breaker.
Yeah. I mean, there's a slightly clearer path to victory here with him, but it's still not as clear as 5 hand sizes we've seen in the past, where it's pack on damage, defend yourself, or have a way to draw a million cards, defend yourself.
So one card that I'm really excited with T-Hawk to play is, I think he's the best character we have ever seen for the card Hydra Fork. Because he just says, I'm going to play out some foundations and some moves. I'm going to E-commit, and then I'm going to play out some more foundations, and then we're going to Hydra Fork you. No progressive. Blow you up.
That's true. You can discard foundations from your card pool to pay powerful. So I mean, if you're in a spot where you haven't been able to clear out your opponent's hand, they're not expecting it, and he can dome you for 8 or 11 or...
Oh yeah, it's hard to do it for less than 8. It's actually pretty easy to get it up to 15 or 14, 18, 20 range.
So yeah, I don't know. I worry that poor T-Hawk's going to end up in my binder with E Honda. Also,
yeah. Once again, I think that the if we go to the next preview here, his attack. I think that card really complements what he's got going on. It's an attack that lets him kind of put some pressure on his opponent and really kind of recoup the 5 hand size drawback.
So this is heavy body press, 4 difficulty, 3 check, too high for 5. It's a slam. Discard the top 2 cards of your deck. Add a foundation discarded this way to your hand. T-Hawk E, draw a card. Your opponent may discard a card to cancel this effect. So this makes T-Hawk make a little more sense. It's a shame that I can't use the second ability on this card in E Honda, because he sure could use it.
Well, it's not a 5-diff for Honda.
Oh, you're right. You're right, because E Honda had to have his terrible ability and get pigeonholed into 5 difficulty.
The shots. I hope you're not going to be salty about Vega when he comes up soon.
I'm salty about Honda because I love Honda.
All right, all right.
And once again, he's not good.
Sean, I'll build you a Honda deck. I bet it'll troll someone. Someone might be you.
Probably me. So we were talking before the show, and I actually said this card was bad because it didn't have a block. But you wanted to talk about Kevin Broberg, why it's good that it doesn't have a block.
Yeah, so I really like. So I hate when cards give you too many good options, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we saw that especially with cards like Navos or Ryujin Kyaku, where they give you incredible, best in class blocks, best in class late game finisher status, and even explosive power in the early turns. Like those cards, it's great all the time. And I like when cards like. So what I see with this card is that it has 2 abilities that give you card advantage and even give you some selection. You get if you flip 2 foundations, you choose which one you want to add to your hand. And so it's only a 4 difficulty move, and it kind of says, well, if you draw this, rather than being a card like Yami Brai from a Ruler of Time, where it's a 0, it's the best class like 0 mid breaker one, and it also draws you a card. It just says if you really need this to turn into a block, just play it, use its abilities, and try to dig up a block that way.
I'd rather just have a Yami Brai.
Well, I think it's more interesting to have a card like this than it is to have a card like Yami Brai. If that makes sense. I'd like no blocks.
I'm inclined to agree that it's more interesting, but if I'm playing this on a symbol with, I don't even know if it has a symbol with Yami Brai. Does it have Void? Yeah.
No, they don't chain.
Oh, for some reason I thought Yami Brai had Void.
No, it's a good fire chaos.
All right, then I'm just gonna play good or fire instead. I don't know. This card, I hate to be dumping on the designers tonight, but there's just a lot of cards that I'm kind of underwhelmed about so far this set. I felt like Battle for Power and Blood Omen had a lot of really, really awesome cards that seemed really, really exciting. And so far, like on the excitement meter, these cards seem to be like a 4 or a 5. I mean, they're role players. They're going to be decent. You're going to be excited the first time you open them. But I just don't. I'm not in a spot where I'm like, oh man, I'm going to build a deck around heavy body press.
See, I am all about that grindy, 2 for 1 card at a time, incremental advantage game, and and pressuring my opponent at the same time I'm doing it. So I'm all about this card.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, let's look at something exciting. The next character card we're going to spoil.
Yes,
that is exciting, and that is Vega. I really like when they bring back the art where the character's on the bottom and the text is on top. I always love cards when they do that. 7/19 with Air, Death, and Evil. So while you're in Desperation, your attacks get -1 difficulty and +1 speed, and your opponent's attacks get +1 difficulty and -1 speed. And then Arcommit, after your opponent makes a check, it gets -1. Failing this check will not end the combat phase, and if it's successful, ready this character. I, for one, am very excited to play 7 hand size Andy. I think this is going to be great. Because if you think about it, Kevin, if you don't want Vega to be giving you -1 for the entire turn, you have to fail your first attack.
Oh, Sean. It's not your first attack.
It's your first card.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, if you're going in for an attack turn, like Andy said, well, Arcommit, fuck your attack, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just straight up counterspell it.
With Vega, you're in a tough decision. Let's say you're 7 hand size, you don't have a ton of foundations, and you draw 6 attacks. Can you really
Oh, that's
afford
easy.
to be -1 for the turn if you're going to try to kill somebody?
Yeah.
I may play an attack and see if my opponent hacks. If they hack it, I'll be like, oh darn, fail my check.
Yeah, I think if you have 6 attacks, you're happy to fail any of them because unless you're playing the Wheel and Steel deck with all these cards that ignore progressive difficulty in different ways, um, they're just gonna fail one of those cards because you can't pass 6 attacks in a turn realistically anyway. So you're fine just failing one. Um,
But if you're a 6-hander and you draw 3 attacks,
if you
if you're
say I
E
need
Honda and you're having to play 3/5 difficulty moves, and all your checks are going to get -1, you're probably going to lose this game. Oh man, I'm
yeah,
dead salty about E Honda. So his response is really, really good. And when he gets into desperation, you're always at -1.
yeah, like this character is gonna be this character. I think this character is gonna be frustrating, and it's gonna be really easy to outthink yourself. And if your opponent is on a different page from you, then you'll both be surprised as hell all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out, how much play this character gets. I think he's quite strong. Um, if not,
He's the strongest character we've looked at tonight.
yeah, I think that like we've seen some very weak 7 hand size characters, kind of some 7 hand size characters that don't have a lot going on and kind of got carried by their support and by their symbols, and or like just made some really great things happen with abilities that didn't seem that great on the surface, but these abilities seem effective on the surface. And then if you get support on top of that, it can get really crazy.
Yeah.
One more thing, there's 2 things that I think we've brought up here. If your opponent's playing foundations, you can hack those. If they're going first, you get actual guaranteed counterspell if as soon as they fail it, as soon as they check badly enough. And then also he can hack blocks.
Yeah. So he gives +1 speed to his attacks. Do you know what card he's really good at and matches 3 symbols with?
Which one's that?
I'll give you a hint. It's got an upside down person in a red suit on it.
Well, hey, he doesn't have any enhances on him, so his Nevoses aren't as good as Felicia's.
Well, his Nevoses are going to be
Although they are.
are going to be great because after you've had to play an enhance to avoid getting +4 speed, and because you're 7 hand size off of air, you have 10,000 foundations in your staging area. Yeah, that he gets to Nevose you and give your check -1.
Yeah, and after your build turn got torn apart by -1s, and yeah, oh yeah, this is the resource denial that Honda fears.
Yeah, this is the resource denial I think that any 5 hand sizer fears. Because
Just failing one of your 5 cards sucks. It's horrible.
I mean, a lot
but
of
committing
5
one of your 5 foundations is pretty bad too.
I mean, a lot of 5 hand size decks rely on, well, my first turn, I really hope I draw 4 or 5 foundations because I have to dump them all on the table. And it's like, oh, you needed a 4 there? Nice 3, idiot.
Idiot.
Nice 4, idiot. I mean, just, ugh. So yeah,
I think it's also fun. It's really fun with this character. If your opponent plays a 2 diff right on turn 1, and they check a 5, you can say, "You checked a 4, buddy. Well, you passed, so I'll ready my character." I just think that's funny. Wait. I might have a response.
What an ass. Well, at least Andrew Lexa will come back and play some UFS for a minute, because Andrew Lexa won his very first champ card with Vega.
Yeah,
this Vega's not as good as the original Vega, though.
Oh god, yeah, those characters are ridiculous.
Good old 8 hand size Vega.
823 E commit get to momentum. Yeah, that's pretty real.
Yeah, that'd be kind of unreal. We do have a couple Vega spoilers as well. We have an attack is Zuna drop. 5 difficulty, 3 check attack, 3 high for 6. Another flash throw. We had a flash throw in the last set as well. Did we? Yeah, we did, didn't we? No, we had a range throw. Sorry.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, this is the first time we've combined two. This is a unique combination of keyword abilities now. Range throw is an ability plus a trait. Now we have 2 abilities.
It says if you're at desperation, this attack gets +2 damage. So if you're at desperation, this attack's going to get -1 difficulty, +1 speed, and +2 damage.
Yeah.
And if it deals less than printed, your opponent pitches their whole momentum.
Yeah. So I just gotta say, I've been trying to say like look on the bright side of these cards, but I think this card there was just a mistake made on this card, and that's these abilities should have been responses.
I don't like static abilities. It's hard to keep track of whether or not they're happening. I'd rather have things that people have to activate. I've seen a lot of people get in really bad places because both players, the active player and the defending player, both forgot an attack had safe. Oops. If you had to declare something was safe, at least you'd remember it was happening.
Yeah, and on that the deals less than printed damage, that ability is effectively if it gets blocked, that's such a potent effect sometimes. And there's a lot of decks that, I mean, maybe they even wanted to do this deliberately because they don't want good and evil to be too powerful, to be too impactful, and they wanted to make it effective against good and evil, where you can't just block and then respond to cancel. If you have 5 momentum and triple good and evil down, you want to say, well, I'm going to cancel the effect of discarding my momentum. I'm going to keep my other 4 momentum, but you should be able to respond to these things, and it's pretty there's a couple ways to respond to an attack getting a damage bonus, but even after opponent you can't throw it down to respond to save 2 life from that damage bump.
Mm-hmm. You can block and discard your entire momentum.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty potent move. I think it's going to see some play outside of Vega.
Oh yeah, this card's nice. 8 damage throws. You sit up and pay attention. Right?
I mean, I think Miska's going to like this attack.
Oh yeah, baby. Quick man!
Quick man! He needs all the help he can get!
Oh yeah. So the only thing holding this card back is, I can't say anything about this card giving you the card, helping you find blocks. So if you draw a hand with 3 of these and 3 no block foundations, you're up a creek. In a way that the T-Hawk move, you wouldn't be in that situation.
And then we have a Vega Foundation, Cage Fighter. This is a staple. 1/5 with a +3 high block. R flip. After your opponent makes a check to play a non-foundation card, that check gets -1. And failing that check does not end the combat phase. I think this is going to be a staple. I mean, 1/5 plus an off-zone block.
Evil randomly is actually really good at blocking high right now, but
blocking
high is really important.
So. Its other zone blocks aren't so hot.
Air loves this card. Air really needed a good high block. So, yeah, I feel like this card is worse than it looks. I think that your opponent gets the choice of what's going to happen with its effect. Mm-hmm. It can hack blocks, can do a lot of things, basically, but really it boils down to your opponent commits 1 foundation, and if they can't, or sometimes if they don't want to, then they fail whatever card they're trying to play. And usually things aren't that close. Usually this is just going to be stun 1.
Yeah, except with Vega, while he's in desperation with this card. Now, if your opponent goes to play, let's say, a Hyper Bomb, for example, and Vega's in desperation, and you check a 4, and Vega could be like, well, -1 from my static, -1 from my response, and -1 here. Well, you checked a 1. How much do you need that Hyper Bomb right now?
You know what card is ridiculously good with Vega?
What's that?
So, here's how I'll present it to you. So when Vega's in desperation, when Vega enters desperation, he basically puts a card face down in your opponent's card pool. There was another character with the air and death symbols that wanted to get into desperation and then put cards face down in your opponent's card pool. And one of the best cards in that deck was Pulled the Magician, where if your opponent tries to play a bunch of moves, You just start putting them back in their hand, and they have to pass that full price control check all over again.
So you're telling me I should put this in my Pillow Fort deck?
I think that Vega could be the one man pillow for it. It's a protect my face.
I mean, I maybe I'm not quite right in saying this card's going to be a staple, but I think there's a lot of decks that are going to get more mileage on this out of this card than you initially think.
So I think I absolutely here's what I think about this card. I think you're right. People will put this in all kinds of decks. People will put people will start decks off like, oh, obviously 4 Cage Fighters, and in the same way that people like Dream Thief is kind of a staple right now. Like a lot of people just put Dream Thief in decks, and just like with Dream Thief, I think you can do better than this card in a lot of situations. I think you can find better things that'll just have higher impact or whatever, but you can only go so wrong putting this card in your deck. It does have it's got a solid floor. It's got a baseline that's pretty decent.
Kevin Broberg, what if I block with a Final Betrayal and my opponent wants to play another attack?
Well, they're gonna have a bad time.
Oh, is Broberg
I'm
coming
not
around
gonna
on Dream Thief? That ain't happening. That ain't happening.
Never. Card sucks dick.
Wow. This card, just so everybody remembers, in draft, you're going to see pretty often, it is a common. Mm-hmm. In draft, this is not an embarrassing card to put in your deck.
So, in draft with commons, one of the big things you see a lot is that you can draft a deck with 10 copies of the same common sometimes. Right? Like, if people just don't care about it, they're just passing along to you, you're picking them highly, you get a ton of them. This card does not combine with itself very well. If you play this response 3 times on the same control check, your opponent's just going to fail. And if they were going to fail after 1, you have no way to tell that before you have to decide your passing response. So if you respond once and then you say, they're like, okay, I pass response, you have to commit to playing all of the rest of them before they start committing foundations.
Right. But, I mean, if you're playing in draft and you're trying to get some damage through, and you've somehow amassed like 3 or 4 of these.
Yep, it's +1 speed that you only have to commit to later, so that is nice.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be a pretty powerful card in draft. It's not as busted if you draft 10 of them as like Capsule Zap was in the Battle for Power draft. That was really good, I hear. But yeah, I think at a 1-5, I think we're going to see a lot of this card. And Error, kind of to segue into something I haven't gotten to talk about yet. Error did just lose a really good 1-5, especially if you were playing 1-checks.
This is true.
Let's talk a little bit about the bans, because I didn't get to talk about those last week because I was on a trip. So, there's some bans.
Yep, 4 bans.
Let's start with the one I'm happiest about first. And that is Ryu. Such fair.
So balanced.
So balanced.
I can't wait to see what Ryu 1 dot does in the new set. He's a shadow of his old self.
So, really, 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 really good to see this guy going. I think he has been a problem for a while. And, I think I harassed Jasco Games pretty much constantly about this guy, and it was good to see that they did have the gumption or the will to say, you know what, we don't need a Street Fighter card right now. This guy's bad for the format, and he was bad for the format. And that's all I gotta say. I don't think anyone's gonna sweep in and say no, Ryu was fine. Even you, Kevin Broberg, who hates bans, can you say with a straight face that Ryu was fine?
All I can say about the Ryu ban is that I disagree with a lot of what people are saying about him. I think that I have more complicated reasons that I wanted him to be banned. But, yeah.
Let's move on to a card I'm not sure needed to be banned. In fact, a card that I almost completely disagree on being banned, and that is Shield Ram. I feel really bad for fire decks right now. Shield Ram was a really good reason to play fire.
That's true. Yeah, it was it definitely had the best selection of ranged attacks.
It had great ranged attacks, and the thing is, for the most part, unless you were playing someone like Wagner, where you had a way to efficiently make your shield rams bigger, shield ram was kind of poopy. 4 damage is not a lot. And, I just got back from Vegas and I got cleaned out at the gambling tables. I don't think, unless I have a way to make sure I draw shield rams frequently and often, or I could make them big moves, that shield ram was really that big of a deal. And I do have to admit, it is tilting when your opponent plays 4 shield rams in one turn. Absolutely tilting. That being said, and people want to bellyache, oh, why did shield ram get banned instead of Tengu Dive? I feel like there are better ways to stop Tengu Dive than shield ram. Everything that stops shield ram also stops Tengu Dive. So you're caught red-handed, orders from Hydern, revoke, stuff like that. Stuff that either locks in the card pool, cancels it, also works on Tengu Dive. Plus, I know a lot of people don't get this, but easy way to stop Tengu Dive combo, block high. It's really easy. I heard at Omaha kids did not put high blocks in their decks. That is a mistake right now. But yeah, high blocks are really good right now. A lot of the best attacks in the format are high. Tengu Dive's a high. Flying Spear's a high. Trying to think. Cannonade is a high.
Yeah, a lot of the Scorch Wheel's a high. We're seeing this Wheel and Steel deck with Scorch Wheel and Steel Resurrection built around a all symbol weapon attack lineup base.
All high.
Just a lot of cards that just all highs for splats. You put Throw It Down on Kersplat a lot of the times. It's the smallest move otherwise. Sagaki Offering.
High.
Sturmwaff, Iron Knuckle. Yeah.
So yeah, if you're not blocking high right now, you're going to lose. Have a plan to block high. If you want to beat Zoe, you better block high.
Yep.
All of her best moves are high. Cowboy Battery is a high. Cannonade is a high. Block high. All
right. So how about these last two bands, Proud Nose and Lesson in Magic? If you want to talk to them separately or at the same time,
let's go after Proud Nose on its own.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with Proud Nose. I think the designers want UFS to play a certain way. I think they made it very clear in their post that when you check a 1, they want you to check a 1. Which is fine. But if you want to make sure people who check 1s really check 1s, you got to give them a good reason to want to run a 1 check in their deck, right? So a card like Tengu Dive is a great reason to risk a 1 check if you're going to draw 3 cards and just blow your opponent up out of the game. Tornado Hold looks pretty silly without this card.
Yeah, Tornado Hold is kind of the dream with Tornado Hold is that on turn 1 you're building foundations, you can't fail it, and then by turn 3 or 4 you found something to help mitigate the damage that checking a 1 will do to your attack strings.
But yeah, looking at 1 checks, actually this doesn't match any symbols. What an idiot. But there's a lot of 1 checks that are a lot more embarrassing to run now that you know that you can't flip to make it pass. Your turbocharge is much more scary to play. It's all upside. I mean, that's a card that might have enough upside that you'd still want to run. It's a 0 low block. You get 2 free foundations. You could shuffle all the attack cards into your...
The nutty Turbo Man deck might still just say, I'm going in.
I feel pretty silly if you were going to try to run Zero Shiki Hao Kyaku, because that card's... Unless you're not playing Kim anymore, so you can't just turbo 5 checks all day. Kevin, you want to say something?
So the cool thing, you can still play Zero Shiki. You play it in Felicia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the multiple copies are kicks, so they get Felicia's Enhanced. If they deal damage, your next check gets +2. So you play out your big multiple string, and then you play your last card. You check a 1. It doesn't matter. You got +8 to your damn control check. You're still going to be fine.
I don't know, Kevin Broberg. If I have 8 cards in my card pool,
You'll be
um,
fine. You'll be
back to Proud Nose though. I think that Proud Nose may have had a little bit too good of a return for its cost. Our flip is not really a steep cost at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
if you're counting like what is possible with good luck in my staging area, flipping a foundation does absolutely nothing.
I mean, I probably Proud Nose probably would have been fine had it either been on a 2 difficulty, would have been fine if it was an R flip commit or an R destroy or even an R remove. Then if it felt like it would have had a real cost, because it's like, oh, after I flip a 1 recheck, well, I better recheck. Oh shucks, I checked a 2 this time. I better commit the Proud Nose I just turned over.
Can I just say, I agree with you that it would have felt better, and it really bothers me when we talk about axing cards out of the format, taking them, like ripping people's decks apart to kind of satisfy our feelings.
Well,
Like that's not something I like.
well, Kevin Brober, your name's not on the side of the building, so your feelings aren't important, as important.
I'm just saying I don't want people's feelings to be what counts. I want to look at data. I want to look at kind of things that are more objective than, oh, I don't like the feeling I get when I flip Proud Nose. I don't like the feeling I get when my opponent flips Proud Nose. My opponent shield rams me a bunch of times. I want to say, well, how likely am I to win the game after this kind of thing happens? How much does this affect how I play the game?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I play around it? Am I forced into these bad patterns? Am I, like, what's going on here? And that's not even in the conversation. It's about what do we feel like, and
I mean,
it's just kind of capricious and random, right?
I could agree that if we're basing some of these bands off of feelings, we feel that a 1 should be a 1. We feel that it's silly to get shield rammed 4 times in a turn. It we could end up in a situation. I'm not saying we are, but we could end up in a situation where whoever is, the CCG designer, be it Shane or Jason, or someday maybe they bring in a different design team and they just come along and say, well, I unilaterally feel this about UFS, so this is all you're going to get. I mean, we kind of saw that under the last design team where we like 4 difficulty moves, and almost all the moves were 4 difficulty and modular together. So it could, but they weren't swinging the banhammer based on that.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like they're on a lot of these bands, in particular Proud Nose and Shield Ram. I don't think there was the data there to back up to say, no, these are either unhealthy for the format or they're too powerful. We haven't seen decks people ride into championships on the back of Ryu, who can dump 34 damage on turn 2 and your opponent can't do nothing about it. Right? We haven't seen that with Proud Nose. We haven't seen that with Shield Ram. So, but yeah, you're right. I think banning things based on feelings and not on data can be kind of frightening. But at the same time, I have to imagine the design team put a lot of thought into it and they, tested it about a bit. Maybe there's something in the next couple sets that could have made these cards a problem. And they made the bands based off of that. We can only hope that's what they made the bands based off of. Because, I mean, could you imagine if someone like me could swing the banhammer based on how I felt? There'd be no cards legal in the format.
And so like, we talked about data and things winning championships. Like that's not even the kind of data I'm interested in. So one of the things that has been somewhat of a hot topic in the community is, do we need to ban Zoe or not?
No.
She's really good. I think she actually Swiss champed back-to-back PTCs just now. She's top 8 at all of them. She was in there was a pile of diversity for Zoe. When we talk about, well, does the meta need to adapt to it, or can the meta adapt to it? What are people doing wrong? What's going on that's causing this to happen? But everyone's favorite explanation is always, oh, she's just overpowered, just ban her. She's not healthy for the format. And so having data doesn't mean oh, she won back-to-back events. That means that leads us to a conclusion It just gives it's I don't know. I'm trying to like data isn't just tournament results because tournament results are not really reliable for kind of fundamental truths about what is possible given the format. And that's what we're trying to massage the space of available decks that people can build,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's possible to have fun at tournaments, not just to say like we kind of have to assume that people are playing good decks and playing well and using the tools that are available to them, I think.
Mm-hmm. And making bans based purely off of results can get you on a real bad slope too, because there's always a next best card. So let's say the reason we banned Ryu was because he kept winning. Okay, well, let's get rid of Ryu. Well, now what's the next best thing? Well, Zoe keeps Swiss champing. Zoe's obviously got to be too good. And then we keep whittling down, then all of a sudden, well, we got to ban Psyche because Pillow Fort won 2 events. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of things that got to be taken into consideration with bans. And I have to admit, there is a ban I think was missed in this round. And Kevin Broberg, you may or may not agree with me. We didn't talk about this before the show.
Can I take a guess?
Go ahead.
I'll give you 3 questions. Is it a character card with the life symbol?
Yes.
Is it Dimitri?
Yes.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's the one that gets bandied about a lot, because if we don't ask, well, what's like not if we kind of say, well, what decks are performing very well consistently, and also like what kind of games do we want to have people playing? Do we want to have people playing kind of dynamic back and forth aggressive games, or do we want to bang our head against the wall and like you must be at least your deck must punch at least this hard to ride on this ride to enter this tournament, or you'll have a 0-100 matchup against this defense deck.
yeah, the thing with Dimitri is, when we talked about Proud Nose, one of the things I said was the designers asked, what kind of UFS do we want to play? And the designer said, well, in our vision of UFS, when you check a 1, you check a 1. And it's my opinion when it comes to Dimitri, my vision of UFS involves your foundations having abilities and being able to use them. And Dimitri, I feel like, takes a huge portion of the game just right away from you. Because unless you're playing a character that, the deck can lean very heavily on, so you're playing a strong character like Zoe, you're playing a Ryu, you're going to struggle against Dimitri. If your deck relies on let's say your deck relies on Surveyor to play the same throw over and over again, like Dimitri can do. Well, if he flips your 4 Surveyors, you somehow magically get all of your Surveyors out over the course of the game, you're never going to get to use them, right?
Yeah.
And, it's not like, I'm trying to think of the old character, Taki, where your opponent flipped one of yours, and then vice versa. Each person got to flip one. And I thought that would be a much more fair version of Dimitri. Is, well, you know what? You took my best away. I'll take your best away.
Yeah.
Because
we're gonna arm wrestle and take away from each other, back and forth.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't like that about Dimitri, and I really wish he could have gone. I think he warps the format in such a way that some play styles just aren't relevant, and he does that by himself.
One thing that comes up a lot is that it's really hard to play a different control deck than Dimitri, because if you put these cards in your deck, they'll let you you put 4 Mathematician in your main deck to really screw with Zoe, or you put this and that. It's really hard to build a deck that can use those tools against the aggressive decks and the that wide range of Scorch Wheel decks and Cowboy Battery decks and all kinds of stuff, and then also have a robust enough game plan to get through Dimitri. When I want to drag the game out to 10 turns, but Dimitri's going to take away my staging area for all 10 of those turns. I don't think my character's abilities are that strong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm relying on kind of building up a critical mass of my staging area, and Dimitri just completely trumps that strategy.
Yeah. And then the whole time, I mean, Dimitri's, as far as his attacking plan, his best plan is clearly throws. Yeah. Has always been, probably always will be. So at the same time where you can't get your staging area working your little machine up and running because you lose your best card every turn, he's also whittling you down. Because he's just gonna, if you get like an Ophidiophobia out or any sort of anti-throw tech, he's just gonna be like, turn that stuff over,
Yeah.
and here's my spinning, not my spinning, here's my Death Valley face plant, deal with it. So I think he was a miss. I think that overall, I think the format would open up significantly if
Yeah,
Dimitri
we
was to
could
go
do
away,
more fun things without Dimitri floating around.
and that's
But
why we play card
maybe,
games.
you know, you can look at it the other way. Well, what's 27 attack Zoe, but a deck that's having a ton of fun all the time, starting on turn one. So, maybe they kind of envision him as a check on people getting too creative.
We wouldn't want that. Alrighty, Kevin Broberg, we're actually running over tonight. It's 20 minutes to 10, so we've been running for over an hour already. Let's tie up the loose ends of the night with our upcoming events. This weekend, we are playing, there's going to be an event in Michigan, the Midwest Circuit Stop, aka We Hate King of Fighters Stop number 3, March 25th to 26th at Get Your Game On. The Michigan folks were complaining that we donk on their format all the time on our show, so I'm going to continue to do so. The We Hate King of Fighters format. After that is the most important event on the calendar for the year. For those of you listening, for those of you who haven't bought your tickets yet, you probably should, and that is the St. Louis 1K at the Dizzy Dugout in Collinsville, Illinois. And remember, if you pre-register for this event, you are guaranteed this beautiful Super Skullman 33 plus Turtle playmat. Woo!
Yeah, baby. So now is that the 1st or the 8th of April?
That is the 8th. The 8th
All right, we
and
got a
the
week
9th
off
of April.
later. Love it.
What's that?
We got a week off between these two events. Love it.
And don't forget, the second day of the 1K is the finals for the We Hate King of Fighters format. So if you're in the top 6 of that format and you are at this event, you will get to draft for the championship belt mat. It's a belt, it's also a play mat.
It's pretty tight.
They're saying there's a PTC in Canada this week too, so we're not going to count that because a $300 PTC voucher in Canada is worth 35 cents here, so irrelevant.
Well, I think it's probably still a $300 US voucher, so they can fly to Europe with that. Really.
See, if Jason was smart, it would be 300 Canadian dollars, and then they could charge $5 entry to the tournament. I do not know where it's going on in Canada, but if you're going, good luck to you guys. After the St. Louis 1K is the Little Rock PTC, just a week later at Imagine Games and Hobbies in Little Rock, Arkansas. And then the last thing we got on our schedule right now is the UFS World Championship, and we've begun the countdown to that thanks to Jesse's promo. May 12th to 14th at Level Up Expo in Las Vegas. For those of you watching, be aware that the Level Up Expo is not at a casino. So you will really want to make sure you have a car or reliable transportation if you're flying in for that to get to the event. Because Ubers from the Strip to the Cashman Center are going to be very expensive. I personally recommend staying on Fremont Street.
Yep, Fremont Street's only a bit over a mile away. If you have to Uber there, it's a lot less severe.
Don't walk because it's going to be 110 in May.
Yeah, it's going to be rough there, but much more reasonable. At night you might be able to walk back. It's a hike at night, but whatever.
What's going to be interesting to see, Kevin Broberg, is we are about 2.5 weeks into preview season for Street Fighter. We have no release date, and the World Championship is about 7 weeks away. So I imagine Jasco Games is going to have to shit or get off the pot pretty soon as to whether or not Street Fighter is going to be legal.
That is definitely kind of up in the air at this point. We haven't heard any news on this exact any exact statements on this in the recent history, but I believe it was once stated that this will certainly be legal for Worlds, and that's like the current standing order. But we're reaching the point where that might not be a sustainable case.
So we'll have to see. Judging by Jeremy Ray's comment in the chat, I don't think he is very confident about it himself.
So yep, dust off your polish up your Dimitri deck, polish up your Zoe deck. You're not getting new cards to play with, or you might not get new cards to play with, and at the very least, practicing with these decks. And if we have good news that Street Fighter will be legal, worst case is, well, you know what people are starting from with the decks that were viable before then.
Yeah, so at least you got a place to start. I really hope we don't end up in a situation where Street Fighter comes out the week before and they decide to make it legal. I think it'll make a lot of people salty because a lot of people's events kind of got screwed by that last year.
Yeah.
AKA all of mine.
Well, Sean, at least we know if they do it to themselves, at least we know it wasn't out of malice towards you.
That's true. That is true. So hopefully that release date's coming soon because I think there's a lot of people who have money that they really want to spend on this set and they want to get those cards. So please, Jason, please, Shane, I know you guys work hard. Give us a release date, please. So that is it for tonight. On that note, we will see you guys next week at our new time, 8:30 Eastern Time, for Top Deck Heroes. And as always, we thank you for watching. Good night.
Yeah, thanks for spending a bit of your evening with us. Good night.